Hello ladies and gentlemen, Master of None here. Today I wanted to talk a bit more about the 3 elite specializations that we got to test out during the beta. I recently did a video where I went over my first impressions in PvP. Now I want to look at them from a more casual PvE perspective. The reason for this is, basically everything is viable in open world and similar content, so I hope that way I can focus a little less on pure performance and more on the feel. So far, from what I've seen, the general reception has not been super positive. I do think, however, that there is a lot of great feedback available and hope ArenaNet will take the most important things to heart and is able to change them before EOD launches. Keep in mind that we still have 5 months before the expansion releases. In general, this set of elite specs has a lot more going on than the previous set, which I do really like. There are just quite a few things that, in my opinion, clash thematically or even mechanically with each other. One last thing about the beta and then we will get into it. I don't understand why ArenaNet doesn't give us full legendary armor and weapons. It will make testing so much easier since you can change stats and badges and would be way more convenient. Let's get started with the Catalyst. I want to begin on a positive note. I love the air attunement on Hammer. The spinning tornado was super fun to use and the blowback skill looks incredible. I also like the idea that you have different attunements for melee attacks and ranged attacks. However, I feel like the skill on one attunement should all have the same range, otherwise it feels very off to me. Triple Sear on fire attunement is another interesting mechanic, where if you can line it up in a way that the enemy is in the middle of it, it does more damage. This is a cool mechanic, but currently it just didn't seem to do a lot. The defining skill on Hammer is skill 3, where you summon a little orb based on your current attunement, which buffs you and damages enemies around you. By summoning the orb on different attunements, you can refresh its duration and stack up all the buffs. I really like this from a mechanical and gameplay standpoint. However, if we are talking about the theme, I feel like it doesn't fit the Catalyst at all and should belong on a Weaver instead. There it's already even in the name that spec is about weaving elements together and cycling through them. First of all, on the Catalyst, the hammer attacks are super slow, so it always feels like you can hardly do anything in any given attunement and have to switch out of it already or you lose the buff. Secondly, to me the way the Jade Sphere functions, Catalyst should be more about deliberately choosing your attunement to adapt to different situations. Is your team lacking quickness? Let me summon my orb in air attunement. Oh, we are dropping might stacks? Switch to fire to keep the boons up. Before we move on to the Jade Sphere itself, Hammer in general felt like it had very little defensive capabilities. The trailer made us believe that the Catalyst should be a steady presence in melee combat, but it didn't feel that way at all. About the Jade Sphere. Back when I did the video talking about the livestream, I already feared that the radius on the sphere would be too small. This turned out to be even more the case than I had first expected, because of some very limiting mechanics on the sphere. Obviously the animations are gorgeous, but I really don't like how you can't move the field anymore after placing it. Even worse is when you cancel the field early, you lose all your energy. This feels overly punishing and unnecessary. Same with how your energy drops down to 10 after combat. In general, the energy system feels a bit tacked on because there are just multiple mechanics that, in my opinion, don't mesh very well. I could see a few paths on how to make the Jade Sphere feel better. One way is to be able to move the field somehow or even have it attached to your character. Another, and this would probably be my preferred way, is to get rid of the energy mechanic altogether and instead have a cooldown on it with charges. On top of that, you could even make it so the field actually doesn't switch automatically with your attunement, and thus further enhances this feeling of having to choose your attunements deliberately. This way you could, for example, as a Condi Catalyst, still every now and then switch to air attunement to drop a field that pulses quickness to help out your team, but then immediately go back to fire and earth for your Condi damage. There could even be an interaction with using your augments in the correct field to gain back charges for your Jade Orb, but at this point I'm just starting to rant and I think we get further and further away from what is doable in the given time. I just want to express that there are many ways to make this mechanic feel more exciting and fit better with the theme. At this point, I would like to encourage you to hit the like button, so this video can spread to more people. Let us continue with the Bladesworn. Honestly, I don't think Bladesworn is meant to be a casual PvE spec, and if that's the case, that is fine by me. Not everything needs to be good or fun everywhere. I want to focus mainly on the Dragon Slash ability since it's the defining factor for me. It does ridiculous amounts of burst damage in PvE, but the main reason I didn't like it was that every random CC, no matter how little, interrupts your whole charge. This makes it feel clunky and unrewarding. Also, enemies just move around way too much and have way too little health in open world, or for example similar content like dungeons, for Dragon Slash to feel worth it. I still very much love the idea of the spec though. I think it's great if you get a spec that tries to change the rhythm of combat fundamentally, getting away from pressing all the skills as quickly as possible and having these moments of big, slow, chunky hits. It sounds like an amazing raid spec to me in theory, where bosses behave in a much more predictable way and a skilled player will be able to know how to get the most Dragon Slashes off. If anyone watching this video has tried it in raids, please tell us about your experience, I'm super curious. One issue I had with the spec is that on top of every little daze cancelling your charge up, I also cancelled it often myself accidentally by hitting one of the movement keys. This is just a learn to play issue, but I still wanted to bring it up. Maybe it would be better if you could only cancel it with weapon swap or dodge rolls instead. I wonder if ArenaNet could change the Grandmaster trait Daring Dragon, which lowers your maximum charge level, to be able to charge up on the move. The trade-off would be that you don't get these crazy hits anymore, but it would be a nice option for open world content. However, I'm not entirely sure if this would take away too much from the identity of the spec. As it looks now, I think Bladesworn will be nerfed DPS wise in PvE since it does ridiculous amounts of damage. The question is, how much will they nerf it and will it then still feel worth playing? Bladesworn risks running into the same problem that Elementalists have. You don't bring much else to the table except DPS and have to put in a lot of work to get good results. To end this section on a positive note, I have to say that I do really like the interactions with the ammo skills on Bladesworn. The whole cooldown reduction part with the master trait Lush Forests feels quite fun and could have a big effect on a lot of the core warrior skills. Last but definitely not least, the Vindicator. From a visual standpoint, I really like it. The jump into Stratosphere and landing like a superhero when you dodge looks awesome, and the Greatsword has some meaty feeling skills. I was already missing Greatsword when I hopped back to my Power Herald to catch up on some Living World episodes today. I think it feels awesome as this big AoE cleave weapon that it's trying to be. Since I already talked quite a bit about the Vindicator in the previous video, I don't want to repeat myself too much. There will be a link at the top of the screen if you haven't seen that one yet and are interested in it. However, also in regular PvE, the Greatsword leap felt like it didn't have enough reach. Greatsword is also missing some sort of hard CC skill for me, so enemies can't escape your big slow hits so easily. In the PvP video I was suggesting having the leap immobilize people on impact, since I thought that would be more balanced, but what I would really like to see would be a stun. The legendary alliance stance was a bit of a double-edged sword. I do like the mechanic in theory, but in practice I would often want only one side of the skill for at least 80% of the time. The F2 skill is supposed to fix exactly this, but the energy cost on it makes it feel very bad. After using it you are basically out of energy and have to switch to a different legend anyway. I think it wouldn't break the game to have it cost no energy instead, and would make the whole spec flow a bit nicer. I also heavily dislike how it does basically nothing in all the other legendary stances. 25 energy for 20 endurance with no further benefits seems awful. Compare this to the PvE version of Riposting Shadows in Shiro. That skill costs 5 energy more, but in turn it breaks stun, removes movement impairing condition, gives you fury, isn't evade, and on top of everything gives you 25 endurance. I really hope Arena takes a look at the F2 skill and makes it feel a bit more useful in general. Talking about usefulness, The Elite felt really underwhelming and not effective at all. The giant spear had way less of an impact than I had expected, both visually and from a damage standpoint. Also, can we talk about how this giant spear only hits one target? At the very least, I think it should pierce through enemies in a line to give it more of an epic feel. I didn't like the flip over skill of the Elite either, and I wish the Elite skill would actually embody the Legendary Alliance and make Saint Victor and Archimorus perform some type of ridiculous attack together. In order to not drag this discussion out for much longer, I'll keep it rather short for the dodge mechanic. I feel the same way about it in PvE as I did in PvP. Having only one dodge is already rather limiting, but upping it to 150 endurance with the damage trait feels especially restrictive. The evade frame on that one is also way too long, since it takes you out of the action for quite a while, which seems counterintuitive for a damage-oriented trait. I hope they drop the endurance cost down significantly to at least 100, and also buff the damage. I know I said in the beginning of this video that I didn't want to talk too much about numbers, but in this case, the numbers definitely go hand in hand with the feeling of the skill. It's so cool visually and you expect this huge nuke when you land, which sadly isn't there. All of those points aside though, I do actually like the Vindicator quite a bit. Like I said, I was already missing Greatsword when I went back to my regular Revenant, so I take that as a good sign. There is definitely work to be done, but for me, it's going in the right direction. So what would my conclusion be regarding the 3 specs in casual PvE? They were definitely not as insane as I thought they were going to be. After watching the reveal stream, I was super hyped, which makes me a bit sad. Maybe it's a good reminder to myself with the upcoming medium classes to not get overexcited and just wait and see. This would make for a much less interesting YouTube title though. I still believe that there are a lot of little changes ArenaNet can make to make the Elite specs feel a lot better. The whole event felt like a true beta in the traditional sense. There is still work to be done. While I'm not expecting huge reworks, I am hoping that when we get the last beta, which should be November the 30th, some of the community feedback will already be implemented. Hopefully 5 months is enough to polish everything up. Currently the EOD specs feel less cohesive compared to the ones we've gotten from Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. In my opinion, the previous specs did a much better job of taking a theme and making sure that all the mechanics, visuals and skills were supporting that theme without contradicting each other too much. So hopefully ArenaNet can turn it around, since they do obviously know how to design fun specs. But that is all I wanted to say today. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.